Welcome back to EMS 1 News and Insider Analysis. Ed Bauter and Dan Schwester here from the Overrun. And today we have a story that's coming out of Connecticut where we have a patient is suing a former Connecticut EMT after being kidnapped twice.
Wait a minute. Could you repeat that?
Twice.
Twice. I'm not laughing, but
two times a patient was kidnapped.
And I always thought that the threshold for kidnapping for EMS clinicians was 1. After that,
right. You think that 1 would be enough?
Apparently not.
So the issue with this story, and we're going to kind of take 2 angles here, where there's a conversation as to whether or not EMS workers should be subject to background checks. And there's a couple different opinions on that. Specifically, should it be required by the state, by the Fed, or by the agency?
Sure.
And what the accusations are in this, and what's clever about this article is they don't mention the patient, but they do mention EMT Bradley Doyle. And so essentially what happened here, and this whole story is up here on EMS 1, but it appears the accusations are EMT Doyle went to a patient's house a couple times after interacting with these patients, and then transported the patient against her will, which is the kidnapping charge. So something that we worry about in EMS a lot is taking a patient to the wrong place against their will. You know, we got to make sure we get the right signatures and all of those things. And here we have an instance where an EMT just went ahead and took a patient.
Now this is off the rails. This is...
Yeah. So when we have conversations with EMS workers about, you know, it just takes 1 to kind of ruin the batch, this is what we're talking about. This is, you know, and there's plenty of anecdote, and, you know, you can find a lot of gallows humor to things like this. And certainly that's how we interact in EMS. We're not justifying it or saying that this is funny. That said, this is part of the violation of the public trust that we always worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. And the story in EMS 1 lays out that there's some weird stuff going on because there were some family relations that might have been involved with law enforcement, and it might have got swept under the rug because that's what happens.
Because reasons.
Yeah.
And just so we're clear on this, the accusation is not, it's interesting. Like obviously the kidnapping accusation is a very real one, but the actual claim against AMR in this is that they did not exercise reasonable care in hiring, training, or supervising EMT Doyle, who at the time had a quote discoverable end quote criminal history involving quote offenses against women end quote. So the accusation that's being made against AMR here is that they did not do their due diligence in checking this employee's back. And so all the stuff that is being accused that happened, that's its own thing, right? That is something where we can have a conversation like, don't kidnap people, right? But from the system standpoint,
I mean, does that have to be in everybody's orientation now?
I know, right? Well, again, do you sign paperwork like I promise not to kidnap anybody? But it like, and we joke about it, but this is really the case, right? Where is this a situation where AMR needed staff that so badly that they were willing to kind of overlook this person's background? Or is it an ignorance is bliss thing where, you know what, do you have any criminal background? Hey man, he said no, we're under no obligation to do the check. So so we just kind of trust, but we don't verify.
Yeah, an honor system. And
right. Which sounds fine, right? And we all want to be able to work on an honor system.
Sure.
The reality exists that people will lie, especially if the lie benefits them. So if you have someone who wants to work in EMS and it benefits them to lie about their background,
they will. That's
someone who can get into the field. This is why we want to have universal background checks for EMS workers. This is something that a background now, and you know, thankfully, it seems like everyone in this case came out unscathed, at least physically. Right. This isn't a case where someone was assaulted or someone was murdered. And it's very upsetting that we have to add that caveat to these types of stories. But you know, this is a story where everyone got out okay. So we can take the time to actually do the systems analysis where, all right, what went wrong? And in this type of setting, if you're not willing to do these background checks, this is what you're opening yourself up to. Yeah. And there's the, you know, the ethics side and the personnel side, which obviously this is horrible for the victim. right? We're not trying to
Sure.
downplay that at all.
Not at all.
The system that operated, that allowed this to happen, needs to be looked at and needs to be addressed. Where if you're not doing background checks, maybe you have to do background checks now, right? This is that one mistake. We all still have to take our shoes off in the airport because one guy failed, right? So this is one
true,
thing where
though, right?
But again, there wasn't a background check done, and this happened.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got to do background checks.
Yeah.
Sorry. But the anecdote that we're always worried about happened.
Look,
that's it.
Here's the thing for a management person: is the expense of background checking all of your employees worth the 1 or 2 incidents that are going to happen if you don't?
Right. Is the outlay, is the original price going to be less expensive than whatever ensuing lawsuit you might have?
Absolutely.
And now AMR might be able to answer that question for us. So let us know what you guys think. Have you read this story? Do you have similar stories? And again, if you're at AMR, let us know what's going on there.
Do you know this guy? Give us a call.
Tell us the story. Overrunproductions@gmail.com, overrunems.com is our website. We are here all the time for EMS One, bringing you some of the breaking news and stories that are happening in the EMS world. Check out all of our stuff over at overrunems.com and go ahead and read all of our stories. Listen to all of our stuff here on EMS One. And for the Overrun and EMS One news and insider analysis, Ed Bauter, Dan Schwester from the Overrun, and we'll talk to you all next time.